Hey, hey, how are you all today? It's Mindy Stern from Israel.
And Annie from Melbourne, Australia with Sylvia from Singapore.
Wow, what a team today on the AM PM show. We are talking from both sides of the world. Ladies, how are you today? It's evening your time, right?
We are great. I feel like we are Tweedledee and Tweedledum over here. We've been told we were twins today, so anything goes now.
You guys look so much alike. That is true. You
I
have
know.
the same aura as well, not just the looks. You say the same aura. So why don't you, Annie, maybe you want to introduce Sylvie. Sylvie, maybe you want to introduce yourself.
Do you want me to introduce myself?
Annie,
Good. Okay, so I'm Sylvia, and I'm Annie's younger sister by about 4 years. And I've been living in Singapore for 9 years with my family. And when we moved to Singapore, we thought we'd be there for about 2 years. And the rest is history, because
how long
just
ago did you move there?
9 years.
9 years ago, okay.
9 years ago. And we went there with the thought that if we go for 2 years, it's great. If we stay for 5, we'll break even. And anything beyond that is a bonus. So I think we're in bonus stage now.
Fantastic. That is so cool. You know, it's interesting. I don't know how old you were when you moved, but I also moved away, from family, from friends, from where I grew up. And I moved when I was 22. How about you? How old were you when you moved to Singapore?
I was 41.
41. Oh, that's tough. Break in the middle of life.
Do you know, when we left Romania as children, my father was in his 40s and he moved from Europe to Australia. So it seems to be a thing that happens in your 40s. It's like new pastures.
I think I'm probably much harder in your 40s because you're so used to a certain way of life and you have a community and a support group. And I was 22, so I was fresh out of college. Who cares where I lived? I just had I was an ideologist. It was an ideology to move to Israel from New York.
Maybe for many people who have huge connections, but I actually remember this. 2 of my closest friends who lived about 15 minutes away from me, one moved an hour and a half southwest, and the other one moved an hour and a half northwest. And I said, do you know what you 2 deserve? Is for me to just get up and leave the whole country, not knowing that a year later, that's exactly what was going to happen. And I went, oh, wow.
Oh, that's amazing.
We were ready, John and I were ready, actually. We wanted an overseas experience. Trinity was little. She was only 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I always loved traveling. So for me to get up and go wasn't that difficult.
That's amazing.
So I think shifting wasn't hard. Settling in was not hard. But it took time because I ended up being very shy and introverted because I was dealing with a wide range of cultures. So not just the local culture, but Americans and South Africans and Indians and Germans and so on. It's actually pretty much most of the planet.
Yeah, you became what they call an expat, yeah?
Pretty much,
and you go into a community of expats, because it's hard to, I guess. Also here in Israel, it's hard to really get in and mix and be one with the local population.
You can't here. You can't. We have not broken into the local population. We just broke into the local expat population.
Yeah.
And I think many locals just perceive us as people who come in for a period of time and we leave, which is true for most expats. They come for a couple of years, they do a stint, and then they go home. So they don't want to engage, they don't want to make friendships because they're just going to leave anyway.
Yeah.
Then you get our kind who come and we forget to leave. But we still haven't broken into the local community. So we're sort of like floating. We're somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. Are you a citizen, a resident?
Permanent resident. Yeah.
You're a resident.
Yes.
That's very cool. So you have rights and responsibilities as everyone else.
Yeah. Well, we had it before as well. The only difference that it really makes to us is that if John ends up out of work, we don't have to pack up and leave in 30 days. We just stay.
Yeah, that's cool.
Until he sorts himself out and gets another job. And we actually were very much on the edge of that, because he was doing a contract that was ending at the end of December, and we hadn't received any response about our permanent residency. And I said, John, I said, if we don't get anything soon, we have to go into plan B, and if that doesn't work, C and D. So we already had it all categorized how we're going to manage it and deal with it. 6 weeks prior to his contract ending, the residency came through, and we just went, okay, we can mark all those plans. We don't need to worry about them anymore.
What a relief.
Can I say what I think helped? Can I?
Absolutely.
I'm gonna boast here.
Oh, look, my ears are getting hot now.
So many years when in the first year or 2 years that you were there, they applied and they kept on getting rejected, and they were told that they would have to do something, a lot of community work to be considered, right? And at the time Sylvia was really organizing things, running the household. There was no time for her to do community service, right? But then John had his jobs and whatnot. So years go by, and then 2 years ago, was it 2 years?
2.5.
2.5 years ago.
May 2017.
How is this? Talking about how the universe works in mysterious ways. Sylvie takes Trinity out on a walk, and this is the subject that we want to talk about today. It's homeschooling, because it's so expensive over there. So Sylvie decided, I'm going to homeschool. She looked into it, decided to homeschool, and that's what you guys are going to talk about, because this is close to both of your hearts. However, so this one day, Sylvie decides to go and teach her about, why don't you tell
rocks.
The story?
So we were studying rocks at home, and I said, you know what, Trini, I go, why don't we just pack up and go outside, and we'll go down onto the beach, because I'm only 5 minutes away from the coastline. And I said, well, let's get some rocks and let's figure it out. So I said, look, before we go, let me get changed. And I usually don't do that. I usually just go somewhere, grab my bags, and off I go. And we went across, we were looking at rocks. It was in a nice park. It is a very hot day, middle of the day, pelting 30 degrees outside, which is another thing I typically wouldn't do in the middle of the day because it's too hot. And across from my condo on the coastline was this huge mound of sand, which they were going to eventually put it on, because it's reclaimed land, that whole area. So they top it up every now and then. And Trini goes, can I go to the top? And I said, sure. And I followed her. I said, I'll take some pictures. And I'm hearing a whole bunch of kids down below. And I looked down, I'm like, oh yeah, there's a bunch of teenagers frolicking around the edge of the water. And I started taking some photos, and I thought, now I know that a lot of kids in Singapore can't swim. And I said, you know what, I'll 1, 2, 3. Okay, there's 7 kids in the water, just all very nanosecond in my head. And within 5 minutes, I hear like a call for help. And you know, kids usually they like to pretend that they're drowning or they're mucking around, and they're very vocal. And I thought, this doesn't seem right. So I came off the sand mound, I dropped all my gear, and I went into the water probably up to about my knees, to the nearest boys. And I said, are you guys in trouble? And no one's saying anything. So listen to me. If you don't tell me whether you're in trouble or not, I'm not coming in. And they said, no, we are in trouble. And I said, fine, there's 3 of you. Can you get out on your own? They said, yes. I had 4 boys about 40 meters out in open ground. And I thought, all right, number 1, go to whoever's the closest. So I swam out to the first one, and I dragged him out. Then I swam into the second one, and I pulled him out. And I thought, now I'm in trouble, because I don't actually have the capacity to go back in. The other 2 boys were 50 meters out. They were even further out. So they got pulled by the current underneath. And I thought, I can't go back in there. Yet at the same time, I knew I wasn't just going to let him go or let them go. So as I came out, there was a gentleman with his wife on the shoreline. I said, can you swim? Can you give me a hand? And he's just looking at me like flabbergasted, almost like you could see his brains trying to figure out, what do I do? And I said, listen, You can tell that I'm a fully grown woman. I'm not mucking around. I need help. There's 2 boys out there. Can you help me or not? And then his wife said, you better help. She got onto the emergency services in the meantime. He got a buoy. Before we managed to get back into the water, one of the boys drowned.
Oh my God.
So together, the 2 of us swam out to the boy that was left behind. And the only thing that saved him was the fact that he flipped on his back and he just floated. Because that's what I kept yelling at, get on your back, float. But I had no idea what I was talking about.
Wow.
So we got to him, and I remember when I flipped him over to put him over the buoy, and his eyes flickered, and you could just see that he could just let go onto it, and like nearly passed out.
Wow.
And I said, you're okay. I said, we've got you. Just relax. We'll pull you out. And we were fine. I was fine at this stage as well because I could rest on the buoy, so I needed to kick my way out.
What a story, Sylvie.
Got him out, and once we got him out, I checked whether they were all okay. The emergency services arrived, and then they had to get the divers in because we just couldn't find the 4th boy. It took them 3 hours, and they found him underneath, and they pulled him out. And then they had to ring the mum, who was living on the west side, on the opposite side of the island, to come and identify him. And the poor woman passed out.
Oh my God.
Youngest son of 3. All the boys were between 12 and 13 years old. They came down to my side of the city to use the skate park because they had just finished their exams, but it was so hot they decided to go in the water and cool off. And they didn't realize because it's reclaimed land. If you're coming from one side, up to a certain point, it will reach your knees. But if you come from the other one, you can't touch the ground. And they didn't know what was happening underneath. And so going back to what Annie was going to get to is we, just before this event took place, we had put in an application for permanent residency for a second time. And 2 months after this event, we got a rejection letter because there was no connection between the 2 events. So John just went back to them by email and said, look, and just put in all the articles. There were so many articles where you put my name in there and that's the first thing that comes up.
Wow.
It's like a page full. And then it still took them 4 months before they came back and said, sure, take the PR.
Wow. You deserve residency. You deserve a medal, of Good Samaritan medal.
I did. I got that. I got that as well. I think I got 2 medals, 3. I think I got 3 medals.
What a hero you are. My goodness.
People still stop her now and they go, are you that lady? You know,
I believe it.
It's funny because I just decided to go and visit her.
That's right.
And 1 month before all this happened, I said, Sylvie, I miss you. I want to come and see you. Right? She said, oh, okay. And it just so happened. So I bought my ticket and I was coming to see her. And then all this thing happened. So it was kind of like perfect with me to get there at that time. Just to be
You only got there like 2 days later or something.
Wow.
How was
that?
that?
In shock.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I was in shock. I think I was more concerned about Trini because she was on the beach the whole time. She saw the whole time.
She was 8.
She was 8. And I didn't explain anything to her when I went in the water, like typical sergeant that I am.
Yeah.
I grabbed my belt and my phone because, I don't want to lose this stuff in the water. And I said, you take care of this. You wait here, don't go anywhere. And I went straight in the water. And of course, then the whole thing unfolded as I'm in there's no time for me to come out and say, hey, honey, are you okay?
Yeah.
And I was not thinking about her because all I was thinking about is, crap, I better get out of this water and make sure I get back to her.
Wow.
And even when I came out, I checked in on the boys. Then I did a very basic check on Trini. Are you okay? She said, yes. I said, all right, you stay here. And then I sort of like walked up and down the sand because in my head, I wasn't accepting the fact that the 4th boy disappeared. I kept waiting for him to just pop up like a buoy.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
And I sat down on the sand by myself, trying to process what had taken place. And Trini was the one who came up to me, and she actually was the one who was consoling me
Really?
It was a really strange mix.
Yeah. Wow. You're a hero, and that's a really hard situation.
Yeah.
That's probably very much affected your life and your family's life, not just being able to get
Myself.
residency because of it, but
Well, that was one part of it, but it certainly had some flow-on effect afterwards.
I can imagine. Wow. And so thank you, first of all, for sharing that story. It's really very inspiring. I wish none of us to be in a situation like that, but to be in a situation like that, to take action the way you did, and in a place where you felt that you couldn't go further, you still went further because that's what you needed to do. It's just amazing. I don't even know how to move on to another topic with something so powerful like that in our space.
Well, this is I think it was more like because how is this? She's homeschooling, so she's got her what you do all the time at home with Trinity, and then this one day you decide, well, let's go and do geography or whatever you were doing, geology, and all this happened. But here, what I'm looking at, it's, you know how you hear stories about women, because, you know, like you've got men that are naturally strong, and then you hear women that the adrenaline kicks in where they can lift a car and do this and that. And it was the seas were choppy, and your adrenaline was so strong to go in and out and in and out and in and out.
The second boy was really fighting me. And I said, cut it out, because I said, I'm going to have to let you go. Because even then I knew that if I'm not careful, he can drown me. And I was going to put myself in that position. So I would let him go and he'd sink underneath, and I'd pull him at arm's length. And, you know, I kept saying, stop doing this. I will get you out, but you've got to stop fighting me. And it wasn't until a month later when I was invited to the school so I could meet the parents and I could actually meet the boys, because I had no faces. I had no idea what they looked like. That it was explained to me that he wore glasses and he lost them as a result of it, and he had a cramp in his leg. So much fear had affected him because he couldn't even see which way land was, and he knew there was a person there, but he's trying to grab a hold of that person because that's what you do when you're drowning. You look for anything you can hold on to. So it made sense afterwards as to why he was fighting me, because the other two were fine. I mean, the first boy, he was a little bit closer, so it wasn't as hard to get him out. But it was tough because I didn't have any life-saving skills. Yeah. I just knew to swim.
Just had great instinct.
Reasonably comfortable in open water. I don't get scared by it. And it's just, I guess, that motherly instinct. Oh my God, kid's in trouble. You just go and do something.
Go and do it. Just go and do it. Well, you are my hero.
The whole thing here is that with all this happening, and then Sylvie and John, her husband, doing a bit of research, thing is, it's a country that's surrounded by water and people don't know how to swim. And I think it is so important, whether you live in Singapore or in Tel Aviv or the Australia. US or Australia, to teach your children how to swim, or at least have the basics if they get in a situation, what to do.
Water safety.
And summer's coming in Australia, for example, and you hear a lot of drownings with children in your backyard pool while mum is making salad for the barbecue, and she goes outside and, you know. Yeah. So how important that type of education. So it's not just education, go to school and learn how to do math. Because my thing is, you learn how to play piano, but you're going to be playing piano at the bottom of the sea. And that's, you know, I sound a little bit sarcastic, but it's a reality. That when it comes to educating our children, we need to educate them in everything. Right. And that's
more than one level of education.
Yeah. So that comes to, you know, what the topic for today I thought would be homeschooling, because like my son just
graduated.
Thank you. He graduated yesterday. He had his graduation yesterday. Yay, thank you. He played and all of that. And I'll tell you what, like, I'm watching Sylvie bring up her daughter who's 11 now. And how long have you been homeschooling?
All her primary years, so 5 years now.
She's been homeschooling for 5 years, and this kid is on it. Like, she talks to me about Michelle Obama, and she talks to me about, you know, Hitler and what was Hitler good at and all of that, and you go, what? But you know, and then she talks about Mandela and what
Louis Armstrong.
and
we were
Louis
talking about
Armstrong.
yesterday.
Right? They're going, what? And she's 11, right? And then I look at my son who's been educated in a normal system, right? And his whole thing to get away from all that madness and all those rules and regulations, you know, he escapes into his gaming. So, and he just doesn't want to know about anything else because he just wants to run away from this, you know, rules. And I thought, I know you're very passionate about homeschooling. She's passionate about homeschooling. And I thought maybe that could be quite a good subject. Sorry, I digressed about all this stuff.
That's all right. It's all good.
There's a lesson in it because people need to learn how to.
If I can
teach their kids
maybe tie it in, once this event took place, I got onto a group that taught children beach safety, water safety, life-saving, you know, the lifesavers, beach lifesavers. And in Australia, it's called NIPPERS.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically a junior lifesaver program. And when I saw these photos pop up on my feed, I'm like, yep, I need one of those. I need my kid to know what to do if she's in trouble. She was always a competent swimmer because she's been swimming for about 6 years. But a swimming pool swim isn't the same as open water swim.
Right.
So I want to gain the skills in how to take care of herself in the water. And of course, life-saving skills where she can help somebody else who might be in trouble. In order to do that, John and I had to get qualified as lifesavers. So we added a set of skills that we had never considered in our lives. And got her involved in NIPPERS. And we've just completed our 2nd year. By being involved with this group of NIPPERS, we were approached by the aquarium, by the major aquarium. So you've got Sentosa Island, and there's the governing body of that island.
Mm-hmm.
And they have one of the major aquariums there. And they approached the NIPPERS group for what they called Ocean Boot Camp. And it was a how to take care of your ocean conservation program that was run over 3 Saturdays, full days, where they teach kids how to come up with campaigns, come up with their own campaign, work in a group, understand ocean conservation, and so on. So I said to Trini, give it a whirl, see what it's like. She absolutely loved it. It opened up the world on conservation, didn't it?
Ah,
so
nice.
From there, it moved on into single plastic usage and said, Mum, we can't use plastic anymore. We can't use straws anymore. I said, okay. So no more straws. So what do we do? So if we go into a shop where we actually need a straw, we try to find out whether it's actually recyclable or not. So if she hadn't been homeschooled, if you look at the chain of events, if I hadn't been at home homeschooling Trinity to be on the beach to save the boys, we wouldn't have been led into a whole new program, which is NIPPERS, which is life-saving, a whole new set of skills, which then led into ocean conservation, which then led me to open her up. I started curating certain books that had stories attached with conservation. And I came across an organisation called Born Free. They're out of the UK. And they've been around for about 40 odd years. And they actually help wild animals in distress who've kept as pets, who, the whole animal trade, and try and return them either to their natural environment or rehabilitate them or release them into reservations.
Yeah.
So then I bought those books for Trini. She read them all. And then she said, Mum, we can adopt an animal. So that led us to philanthropy, right? So then we started adopting animals. So at the moment, I think we've adopted an orangutan, a gorilla, a tiger, and one other. I think it was a chimpanzee.
Oh, neat.
So by being able to homeschool where we're not dictated by a curriculum, we're dictated by her interests, one thing opens up an opportunity for something else. And then we go and explore that, which then opens up another opportunity somewhere else. So then we explore that. And what we don't realize is through our own interest, the building blocks are taking place. And through that, because you got to read if you want to understand it, you got to write if you want to say something. Through your reading, you learn your spelling. So instead of sitting there and say, okay, Trina, you got to learn these 10 words, and next week I'm going to test you on it. I don't do any of that. I've never taught her any spelling. She's learned from reading, from having to write, from communicating with her friends on WhatsApp. And it's a much more natural approach to learning, and she's enjoying the process, which is the most important part. Because when you enjoy your process, you remain open to learning. So then I had somebody put me on to another organization called OutSchool. They're an American company that do online classes. And through that, I found a teacher that Trinity absolutely loved, who dealt with endangered species. So another set of classes that doesn't require me to be the expert. I hand her over to somebody else who's an expert, but she wants to do it because she's interested. And it's not going through a variety of bits of information in a topic area that you don't care about. Right. You can go and hone in directly in what you want to know about. Don't tell me about the elephants if I want to know about the tigers. Show me the tigers. Let's talk about them. And then if I want to know about elephants, I'll come back to you. But if not, I'm going to go and check out the chimpanzees.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
I think that's so neat. First of all, good for you. Good for you. Because I mean, I have a lot to say about school. I did not homeschool my children. So I don't have the expertise of saying I did it. I know that it works. But I did send my kids to regular school, and I am an expert on regular school, and I know how it works, and it sucks. It is the most. Annie, you said that your son graduated yesterday from high school. I think the happiest day of my life was the day that my youngest son graduated from high school. I mean,
Amen.
He celebrated. He was out of that horrible. I don't even know the words in English. School is a place to suppress, in my opinion, my experience, myself. I went through. I have 18 years of schooling, right? So it's not that I'm not against education. I'm for education, very for education. So 18 years of experience in formal education means I'm pretty much an expert, and school sucked for me. And then I have a daughter who struggled in school, didn't get the grades, the teachers didn't understand her, she wasn't so communicative. I had in first grade, you got to excuse me because I got to get this out because I love what you're doing.
Please do.
In first grade, they wanted to put her in a classroom. There's three first grade classes in the school that she went to. My daughter's 22 now, so she survived formal public education, thank goodness. They want to put her into the class. So they put her in a class where she knows nobody. And she was a very shy child. I went to the school. I said, listen, she knows nobody. She needs to have a little bit of support and something. Can we move her to a class? After a month of really struggling and begging and crying, the parent, please, my daughter can't go into this environment without any kind of social support. They put her into a class where she knows other children. She's in this class. Now, I am Anglo-Saxon, she goes to not expat. My kids aren't expats, they're Israeli. So they speak in Hebrew, they learn in Hebrew, they go in the regular system, completely integrated into society here. And so, but I am more vocal than my child, and you can't help but hear that I'm an Anglo-Saxon, that I'm not Israeli born, and I learned the language. 2 months after school started, when my daughter was in first grade, the teacher, I was involved in the PTA, but 2 months after she started school, the teacher comes up to me and she asks me if my daughter knows Hebrew. 6 years old.
So she hasn't spoken for 2 months.
2 months. I mean, maybe she was speaking, but the teacher doesn't even know she can speak Hebrew. 2 months, she's in school. My daughter's fluent in Hebrew. She grew up in Israel. I mean, that's pretty much her first language. And the teacher, because there's 40 kids in the class, the teacher is so stressed out. And she has like you said, a curriculum that she has to go. Who does she teach to? Does she teach to the to the child who's struggling the most, or does she teach to the brightest kids in the class? There's so much of a struggle for the poor teachers. You know, I teach.
Yeah, I commend them.
And that was my daughter. And then my son, who has learning disabilities, not so bad, dyslexic, and maybe a little attention stuff. I don't know, but basically dyslexic, can't read. Every year through first grade, kindergarten, through 12th grade in school and high school to finish, I had to, school starts in September where I live. Every October, I had to go meet every teacher one at a time. I went with a book. I don't think I have the book here, but I will look for it. You know, I have a book that I gave them as a gift that explains that each child is different and each child has different needs. And it doesn't mean that they're good children, doesn't mean that they're bad children. It just means that every child has a different need, and how we as adults can support children with different needs, even in a formal context. So that was my present to them. And then I had to introduce them to my son, because they took it very personally that he was disrespectful, that he doesn't want to learn, that he's disruptive, because they were teaching, writing on a board words that he couldn't read. So he wasn't disruptful, he just wasn't paying so much attention because he couldn't read. And so every teacher took it personally that my son was insulting them. So I had to say, my son's name is Yaniv. I said, please, this is my son, this is Yaniv. And I would talk about all his great qualities, you know, what he knows how to do and what he doesn't know how to do, and that he needs the support of the teacher. And every year, guys, every year, from first grade through 12th grade, I had it with every teacher. I had to go through this exercise because, you know, they're busy. I don't blame the teachers, but they're busy. They have to go according to the curriculum. And the kid just had to survive. So what did I do as a parent? What I did is I loved them. They didn't have to get any grades. You know, what they had to do is they had to try. We did homework, and I made sure they did their homework, but it wasn't a struggle. In my house, there was no struggle with school. It wasn't an issue, it wasn't a problem. They did the best that they can do. They studied what they can study. I helped them if they could. We created, like my son is dyslexic, so what we did was we created a work group. You know, invite friends over all the time so they would study together as a team, and the kids who can read would read, and then they would discuss. And that was as close as I can get to trying to get some kind of interaction that wasn't that formal, depressing, suppressing. And my child is brilliant. He's got a tremendous IQ. But in school, because he had learning disabilities, he was always put down. He was always considered the troublemaker. When he's not, he's a good kid. He's very disciplined. He's very kind. And my daughter also got zero attention because she was shy. You know, she don't know she speaks Hebrew for 2 months as she's in school every day. So if I'm just gonna settle my big complaint with, there's not very many things that I regret or that I would do differently in my life. Not many, very, 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 very few. But the homeschooling, I would definitely do. I would definitely, and I talk to my kids now about homeschooling their own children. So that's a big dialogue that we have at home now. My kids are 20 and 22, but it's as much as I talk about how you manage money and how you invest and, you know, all those things that I love to do, I speak to them about, and personal development, I speak to them about homeschooling and that I would love to help them because, you know, I want an 11-year-old kid who's curious and who wants to find the information and is happy in what she's learning and wants to read books because it's interesting for her, the subject matter that's going in. You know, my kids won't touch books.
The upside of myself doing the education, because it's not really schooling, because we don't do school. I don't follow a curriculum. I don't pressure her to know things that other 11-year-olds learn today. I've no idea what she's like on the scale to another 11-year-old, and I couldn't care less. Because you put her in a circle of kids who are schooled, you wouldn't know the difference, right? Because kids, when they're together as friends. They're not together about their academic prowess, how smart am I or how good am I. It's about how they interact and socialize together and solve the problems and figure each other out.
Yeah.
But one of the benefits of it, which took time for me, because I had to unschool myself first in order to give Trinity what she wanted or what she needed, is that I got to see my kid all the time. I got to read the nuances in her, a subtle eye shift or a little bit of a blink or a bit of a shift. Each one of them means something. There's a discomfort taking place in there somewhere. And either she doesn't know how to tell me, or she's too scared to tell me because at the end of the day, I'm still mom, or she's not quite sure where she's at, which allows me the opportunity to deal with it then and there.
Wow.
Not find out months or years later.
Or not find out at all.
Or find out at all. And being able to build her bit by bit. You have a bump, deal with the bump, carry on. It's not like you go, and you got this mountain, how did we get here? How did I not know this? How does this pass me by? Well, it does because you're not there, because she's handed over to somebody else to do that part of it.
Can you tell Mindy about how you shifted her education about maths and numbers?
Oh, so
check this one out, guys.
When we first started, I did the traditional thing. You buy the workbook, you take the sheets out, you say, okay, this is how you do this exercise. Now go, Trini. And she struggled, and we were butting heads, and it went on for about a year. And then it had a complete meltdown. And I'm sitting out of my apartment looking at my kid because I was extremely frustrated. And I thought, oh my God, what am I doing here? I'm looking at this distraught little 7-year-old who can't comprehend the way it's written in the book. And I'm pressing. And I thought, I'm homeschooling. There's other ways. So I went, you know what, Trini? I go, let it go. We just threw the books away. I said, no maths today. And then I let the brain go off on its own to do its own thing. And I turned around and said, you know what, Trini? I go, we're not going to do sheets anymore. I said, we're going to do maths in action. And she went, maths in action? And I said, you know what that means? No. And I said, when we need to work something out mathematically, then I will show you how it works. A relationship to the task. Yeah. So, Trini, how tall is that cupboard? Here's measuring tape. Do you know what to do with it? You stick it down here and you pull it up. I'll hold it up the top because I'm tall. And I go, can you read the numbers? That's how tall that is. How wide is it? Do you know how far it is from our place to Big Splash where you used to go to gymnastics? I go, 5 kilometers. Do you know what 5 kilometers is in meters? I go, it's 5,000 meters. And you just talk, you show it, using the world around her to start imagining how the numbers fit in it. I don't bother her with it. We don't discuss algebra, trigonometry, or anything like that. Because what's necessary in day-to-day life? I need her to know how to handle money. I need her to know how to invest. I need her to know how to run her household. Yeah. They're the kind of numbers that we need to teach.
Sure.
And the moment I took the pressure off and we went into this mode, it changed it all. She's no brilliant mathematician, but every now and then she goes, Mom, if I do this and I want to find out this, would this be the answer? I'm like, right. And if she doesn't get it right, I'll go, you might want to think about that again. If I can see where the blockage is in her head, because I can see what pattern she may be using in her head and she's just messing it up a bit, then I'll break it down and say, look, let's use pen and paper and I'll show you how it works. So it's observing what works for her, how she takes information, and then delivering the information accordingly. Because like you said, the child learns differently. What I may do for her would not work for Julian, for instance, or any other child. Sure. So I've had other parents say, oh, you should run a school and you should teach other kids. And I said, I don't want to teach other kids. I don't know them. That's no different than putting them in a school environment where a teacher teaches. Sure. I want to teach my kid because I know her and I can see the nuances in her when things change, when something's clicking or when something's not. And as time goes by, I start noticing which way she leans. So if I look at my brother, he loves numbers. He loves statistics, but he also loves words. Now, I'm good with numbers for where I need them, but nothing fancy, because I'm more on the creative side. I'm into language and reading, and that's where I lean towards. I'm no scientist. I know nothing about science. And mathematically, I do what I need to do. That I know how to do.
Yeah,
I
sure.
do, however, teach her how to handle numbers in her head. There's no calculator between us.
Yeah.
It's only if the numbers get big and I say, all right, this is too big. We have no pen and paper and will take too long because I'm trying to get to a particular outcome.
Yeah.
Let's use a calculator. But it's use your head. That's how I learned. I learned how to handle numbers in my head, how to find the patterns in numbers. And that's what I try to pass on to her.
Ah, it's amazing.
So out there, she's not pulling the phone out and then not understanding how the numbers stack up in her life.
Right, right. I think that's so cool. And I think that's a great thing that you guys can create a relationship. Now, I'm going to ask two things that always come up when I talk about homeschooling. And, I don't have enough expertise to comment on it other than what I think the answer might be. But there are two things that come up a lot when I talk to other people about homeschooling. And they are this too, okay? The first is, well, it's not what people say, it's something that I know. School is the great babysitter. They have school and you have television. These are two babysitters that the Western world has come to know and love, helps mothers, modern day mothers who work mostly, helps them to manage their kids because kids are curious and they want to do things and they have a lot of energy, and parents are busy generally today, including myself. I was in that mode as well before I became who I am today. I was in career, I was in high tech, I was traveling in the world, I was in business. That's where I was. So I needed a babysitter for my kids. So the big thing when I was thinking about knowing that school sucks, I love my kids dearly, and I would send them every day to school knowing, this is my development, knowing that school sucks. And saying to myself, okay, I know that school sucks, and what I'm going to do is this: when they're not in school, I'm going to love them and support them and encourage them and try to make up for the damage that's happening to them in the school environment. And I'm just going to put in parentheses for the people out there listening, and maybe to you, my kids enjoyed school. My kids had a great upbringing. They had a great childhood, so it's not that no one was beating them up in school physically. It's just emotionally with the teachers and the amount of children in the class and getting along with other kids in the class. It's just not a very supportive environment. It's a very competitive and unsupportive environment because you have to find your own way in being compared to other people that you're not on the same level. Like you said, every kid is different. So the nature of schooling today is unsupportive, is suppressing, because they want to create, workers, not people who think, open-minded people. So anyway, so we have a problem, one, because school as TV are very good babysitters. So that to say you're going to homeschool is a really big commitment for the parent, because parents today do not stay 24/7 with their children. It's just, in society, it doesn't happen, at least in the Western society, it doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
Even in Asia, where women are starting to work more and more, they're not with their kids all day. So
Right.
it's easier. It's easier. I'm not even going to put the air quotes around it. It is much easier to go to work than to raise your kids. So that's one thing that I'd like your input on that. And the second thing is, the social life. I've had a lot of people say to me, but you're not going to send them to school. What about friends? What about their social life? And I have an answer for that, but I want to hear what your answer is, because you have experience.
It's probably the number one question that all homeschooling parents come up against. And to me, socialization, if my kid is going to school to learn, I'm not sending her there for socialization. I'm sending her to learn. If you want to socialize, you hang out with the kids in your yard or your nearby neighbors or whoever you make friends with and you hang out with in recess, and that's when you socialize. How much socialization actually takes place in a school environment is a good question, because recess is getting shorter and shorter nowadays. So kids get less and less time where they're able to interact with one another. Because in a classroom, you can't talk, can you? What's the teacher going to say? Stop talking, be quiet, move over here. So as a homeschooler, I need to make sure that my child is actually interacting with people in the outside world. Now, I'll take Trini, for instance, who does gymnastics. There's a whole bunch of kids there. Nippers, a completely different bunch of kids. Swimming, another bunch of kids. I live in a condo. It's got 900 apartments. A whole nother bunch of kids. So there's kids.
Sailing.
Oh, sailing. I forgot that one.
She does sailing.
Sailing.
Also,
Another
wow.
kid. So her interaction is wherever she is. No different than when you're at school, right? Because she's homeschooled doesn't mean she doesn't leave my apartment.
Yeah.
It just means that the academic aspect of her education is going to take place in my apartment instead of a schoolhouse or a school building. But in terms of socializing and the sports that she's involved in, she's constantly interacting. She's interacting with Westerners, she's interacting with the locals, she's interacting with school kids, she's interacting with homeschool kids. And so wherever she's going, she's interacting. She's here. She's interacting with her cousin right now, and her cousin's dad and grandma. She's interacting with Annie. She's interacting with adults, and she's interacting with toddlers. So she has a range where she can deal with the little kids as well as the adults.
Yeah.
So socialization is only limited if you create a limited environment. Now, in some communities, that happens. But so do some of the crappy schools, where you've got kids who you don't even know they're there. They're hiding in the shadows.
Yeah.
Kids don't just interact because they're in a school environment. It's about who do they click with? Are they open enough for friendships?
Right.
What kind of home environment do they come from? What religion? What culture? It's the connections that people, not kids, people.
Yeah.
People need to be able to connect with somebody that they have something in common with. She broke her phone and we had to get it repaired, and she was out without her phone for 24 hours. And when she got it, Mummy, I have to log into Wi-Fi. I said, what for? She goes, I've got messages everywhere and I've got to get back to everybody. I had more messages in one day than I had in 3 weeks from around the world. She has a friend in California. She has a friend in Perth, Australia. She's just reconnected with some friends in Melbourne. She's got multiple friends in our condo. She's got particular friends at gymnastics. She's got a friend that she really gets along with at Nippers. They're everywhere.
Friends. Yeah.
She has more friends internationally than what I do. So socialization is, if we look at it in a linear fashion, when you've never been exposed to the idea of alternative education, forget homeschooling, because that's just one aspect. There's lots of different styles that goes outside of a classroom.
Yeah.
And what I would like is for you to give us your perspective. And then I actually would like to share what has happened to my son. Now, this session might go a little bit longer than our standard, but I have a feeling that a lot of people will get a lot out of this. So are you okay to go a bit longer?
Let's do it.
This will be the Christmas special.
Right? Or with that tinsel.
Or holiday special.
Holiday special.
Because I think anybody who listens to this as a parent will get so many different perspectives, and we've all had different experiences. I think we're on a roll now. Let's keep going, because I haven't spoken yet. And as I'm listening to you two, I'm going, wow, there's all this stuff that happened. And today we came up with an idea about a school system just because we went to a chiropractor and what we learned out of that. And I'd like to share that with you, see what you think.
Sure.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So what's your perspective on the socialization? Because you said you have your idea.
Yeah, it's pretty much what Sylvie said. We're interacting with people all day long. You don't have to be in school to interact. And a matter of fact, in school, you're stuck in an environment where, you know, not everybody is nice to you, you know, children and adults. So it's also adds to the tension of being in that environment. You know, my daughter had 1 year, I don't know, they had girls, I think it's a girl thing, 5th grade, 6th grade. You know, there was a group of girls in her class, the clique, who decided they didn't like her anymore. And she had a really horrible, horrible year. And the thing with that is that if you're in school, you can't not go to school. Or how much can you not go to school? Because I did let her stay home a lot because, you know, it's a bad environment for her. But how much can you not do that? You have to go to school if you're in school. So, yeah, so I like Sylvie's answer, and that's what I thought. Is just, you know, bring them to the park. Why can't you bring your kids to the park? How many kids are playing in the parks or in the beach after school or after school activities? You know, my kids, they thrived. They were able to overcome whatever obstacles they were facing in school because they had afternoon activities that they loved and that they were excelling in. You know, my son, I told you, had learning disabilities, but he plays soccer, you know, football, and he was good at it. And so I encouraged that. I supported him in anything that has to do with football. And today he's 20 years old and he plays professional football. So he grew up into something that he is very good at. And that's what gave him confidence, because school was always a struggle. He was always, you know, struggling to just get by, you know, and his intelligence level is not someone who can just get by. He's brilliant. He's probably, you know, I'm talking about my son, right? I don't know how objective I am, but he is probably the smartest person that I know, you know, in his only 20 years that he has. And to see this brilliant person, you know, like Einstein couldn't make it in school either. It wasn't the environment for him. So there are brilliant people in the world who are being suppressed because sorry, I don't know if I'm generalizing too much, but we, the adults, need a babysitter. And that's my big take. That, you know, maybe as when we decide to bring children into the world, we need to think a little bit more about how to be a parent. And
yeah, can I add 2 more things to socialization? One of them is that what happens to children who are in a school environment, they're in the same class with the same kids of the same age. And so there's no diversity, there's no growth in where they can become the older ones looking after the younger ones, or vice versa, having the older ones and being able to learn from them. For Trini, it's a very different thing. She has friends that are 3 years old. How old's Julian? And 18 years old. Yeah. Because there's 7 years between her and Julian, and they get along famously. They see each other maybe once or twice a year, and yet it's almost as if they've only seen each other yesterday. But okay, Julian is family. But one of her other closest friends is 16 years old. They've known each other for 6 years. And sure, the relationship shifts because the 16-year-old is now becoming a young woman and Trini is still a child, being 11. But they still find something that gives them a common thread where they can still get together and enjoy each other's company. And they Snapchat. Yeah. Right now, there's a thing that they need to Snapchat every day to keep the, the thread going. Or
yeah. And TikTok videos.
And they do TikTok videos together. And the other side of it is that children aren't bogged down by too much thinking. So if they go in a park and a kid comes and gives them the eye that I'd really like to play with you, they just, no language, no words, they just go. Yeah. So we took her to a caravan park whilst we were on holidays here. And we had a bunch of kids following her around on bikes, and then John picked up a bunch of rocks to throw in the lake, and the kids started running around, and all of a sudden we knew all all these kids and all their names, and then Trini is sort of like hovering around the next day to see if she could see her friend, and then they went to the trampoline and they played on the trampoline, and they're so free at connecting with other kids when they find something in common. Yeah. We're not quite like that. We tend to sort of like look you up and down and measure you up. It's like, could I be bothered? And no, not today.
Like me.
And we miss the opportunities.
Stories come up.
And we miss the opportunities. So children are amazing beings at taking care of their needs.
Yeah.
Just, we gotta let them go.
We gotta let them do it. I'm with you. I'm so. I can't wait till I have an opportunity to start that journey with hopefully my grandchildren. You know, I just got to say one more thing, Annie, and then you can tell you a story if you.
No, go.
I have a niece, my daughter's age. Okay, so my daughter's 22. My niece is also 22. They were born in the same year in '97. And my niece is in the United States, grew up. She has an older sister. My sister and her husband, they're her parents, who are wonderful people. And when my niece was here last time in Israel visiting, and I explained, you know, I'm like Annie said, I'm very passionate about this. It's something that I have no experience in, right? But I have experience on the flip side. So that's what makes me very passionate about homeschooling homeschooling, not even alternative schooling. That speaks to me more. So anyway, I say to her, you know, she wants to move to Israel also. So I said to her, you know, when you move to Israel, I can homeschool your kids too, not just my own grandchildren. You know, when you go off to work, I'd be happy to take care of your kids and homeschool them. So she says to me something that's got to be a reflection of her parents and her environment and however she was brought up and stories in her head. But she says to me, because I said to her, you know, kids struggle in school and it's very difficult and, you know, emotionally, and there's all this trauma going on, and I'd like to save them from that. So she says to me, blew my mind, you know, it's good for them that they have that struggle.
No, it's not.
But, and I can hear that in the environment. You know, there's probably a lot of people out there thinking that, you know, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. You know, what doesn't kill you makes you better. It's even a saying like that. And that's the same kind of mindset. And, you know, I had to take a breath with that because and it was something when I raised my children also. I had a rule, maybe after my oldest daughter was maybe a month old, after struggling to do things the conservative way, the way the books say to do it, I decided that my kids don't cry. You know, my kids are not going to cry. So whatever attention they need, whatever help they need, I'm gonna help them. And that was a decision I made early on as a parent, and I'm very happy because I've got happy, confident kids. And but I don't have that thing, you know, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I believe in learning from mistakes, but I don't believe that you need to suffer. And and that concept that she had was, you know, you put them in this really violent obstacle, and then she'll be a better person. You know, what do you think? What do you ladies think about that?
I'm not sure about that, because if it really worked like that, the most of us wouldn't need all the books and all the courses and all of the mental unraveling of the garbage that landed in there. And then at the end of 12 years, they say, okay, here you go, you're an adult now. Off you go, figure it out on your own. You just go,
Well, I have something to say on that.
Yeah, baby, give it to me. Yeah, I'm
okay.
getting dressed here. Getting hot.
Look at this going on. Yeah, Sylvie's red in the cheeks. I'm getting a hot flush, and you're getting a breast. So this is. You can see how passionate.
It's a hotly debated topic.
And I hope that many people are gonna enjoy this and get themselves a cup of coffee. Maybe we should tell them, get a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
To get the perspective of three women who have so
different experiences,
but ultimately it comes down to the same thing: how much we love our children and how our experiences and what we're experiencing with the children, and how if we pay attention to our children, how much we can help them blossom into self-aware and powerful human beings. And as the freshest right now, like Trinity's 11, so she's got a bit of time to go. Your children have already been there, done that, so now they're doing their own thing and they're very successful in whatever they're doing. You know, your son is in the army. and he's a professional soccer player. Hello.
Yeah.
You know, oops, he had dyslexia. So did Richard Branson.
Yeah.
So did, and if you look at the majority of these people that have done very, very well in the world professionally, they didn't do well in school. They really didn't.
Or were homeschooled themselves. Taylor Swift was homeschooled.
Really?
Einstein was told he was too dumb, so the mother said, I don't think so, I'll homeschool him. Abraham Lincoln didn't know how to read. He taught himself how to read. He taught himself how to become a lawyer. The rest is history.
Yeah.
Mozart, homeschooled. The list of homeschooled successful people is, all you have to do is just homeschool celebrities and it'll come up with the list.
So if anybody is thinking about it, do your research. So the whole thing about what you guys just talked before, my son was in year 11 and he was still talking about his wounds from, because high school starts here in year 7. He got bullied every single day in year 7, year 8, year 9, half of year 10. And in year 10, he actually started to get some friends who was as dorky as he is. My son is really dorky, and he's 80 years old and he still does, it does, and it's all good, you know, that's fine. So he found a great group of friends. But he got bullied so much and he would come home and he would cry. Now, I'm a coach. So I sat there and I coached him and I coached him and I coached his emotions. So he's, let's call it fortunate, right? How many parents don't know how to deal with it and say, you'll be fine, she'll be fine. And in Australia, there's this thing of, she'll be fine, yeah, let's move on. Yeah, you strong, hard yakka, you know, let's go on. And same in Europe, you know, in our countries, you know, like, oh, you gotta suffer. Life is really hard. Life is hard, but it's not that hard. And life is actually really beautiful. Yeah, it's got challenges. How about teaching our children, okay, when the challenges happen, what are you learning out of it? What is the benefit out of it? So, you know, I'm watching all of this. And when he was in year 5 in primary school, we get phone calls from school going, your son is this and your son is that. And we're going,
I have to imagine.
Our kid, I mean, when my son was born, he didn't make a sound. And I said to the nurses, I said, he's not crying. And they said, oh, you just wait. He never cried. All the mothers used to tell me off going, oh, you're so lucky. Wait till you have another one. Hopefully that one is going to be a loud one so you know what we're going through. Well, I didn't, because I was there, listened to his cry and paid attention, right? So when he
didn't have the need.
He didn't have the need. So he was always surrounded by love, and we didn't put him in front of the television. And when we went out shopping and our kids started crying, it was like, that's it, stop the shopping, we're going home if he was distraught. Or we stopped, paid attention to him. He was okay. He fell asleep in a pram, and then we kept on going. But we always paid attention to his needs first and foremost, right? So then when we got the call from school, you know, we would go to school and he had this new teacher, this male guy, and he misbehaves and this and that, until I noticed his eyes rolling in his head at the dinner table. And I'm telling him, do your homework, you do your homework, you have to do your homework, you have to do your homework. And he's just sitting there. And I went like this, and there was no blinking. And I went, okay. Something's not right. So I took him to the doctor. He had epilepsy. He was having 200 episodes a day.
Oh my God.
But we don't know. So epilepsy, there's different levels, right? There's the ones when you have the full-on seizures, but there's the ones when you blank out, right? So as a teacher's telling him to pay attention, he's just sitting there. So teachers is losing his shit, and my kid is having an episode, right? So that was something to go, ooh, okay, let's start paying attention to this. So then we started, as he gone into into high school, we actually told the teachers, so we always had to fill everything in. He had to get onto medication and the whole thing. I'm not into taking much medication, so I said to the doctor, can we do something else? He said, yeah, sure. He doesn't need to do anything. But the moment he grows to the stage where you ask him to go and get milk from the supermarket from across the road from your house, and he has a seizure, he will not see that the light is red, and he's just going to walk in front of the car. And I said, okay, thank you, please write the medicine.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And he didn't take his medicine because he becomes a teenager and he doesn't want to listen to mom. And then he has a massive seizure and breaks his shoulder, right? So we have to be vigilant. And when kids, you know, when there's something going on, we need to look at, is there something serious with our children? But we've got to be careful that we don't say, oh, he's got ADHD or he's got this. Make sure that he does have that, because some children are full of life. Let's not stunt their spirit, right? And I see Trinity now at home. And, you know, when Sylvie loses her shit, Trinity goes, namaste, mommy. So there's nothing. Right? Well, Julian says to me, mom, take a chill pill. All right. So the thing is that, and then how, I mean, there is a God or whatever you believe in, a source or whatever out there. He failed 5 of his 6 exams, and I was just like, I really don't know what else to do with this kid, right? He would come home going, Mom, school is so boring and I can't handle this. And in 30 degrees heat, they had to wear their jacket because he had the emblem. So everybody on the street knows which school he goes to, while he's carrying 5 kilograms and 10 kilograms on his back, going home in a sweat.
Because he's fine.
How freaking ridiculous is this for our children, right? So to advertise the school. So I really had an issue with that. And Julian said, I'm sick and tired of the rules of this society. He goes, this is bullshit. So as he was getting older, now I coach him a lot. So his thinking is quite different, right? And he looks at life quite differently. So at year 10, when he had to look at his subjects for his last 2 years of high school, which is called VCE here, right? The teacher I'm so lucky for this guy. He goes, why do you want to stay in this school? And we're going,
that was an alternative.
What? He goes, you have all these art subjects. He goes, why don't you go to an art school? And I went, what? Is he allowed to move to another school?
Wow.
Because of course he does. I was uneducated in this. There are alternatives. Sure enough, no uniform. So that's thousands of dollars that we saved. Treat them like adults. When we went to that particular school, it was an art school, and they said to them, this is still a school, you need to do your homework, but we are going to treat you like an adult. We're not going to be sitting there telling you, sit there, do this, turn up. However, we have a couple of rules, right? And you obey them, you don't, it's up to you. So it was really interesting because it was quite a difficult, not difficult, but challenging transition going from complete and utter rules to no rules.
Yeah, wow.
So there was no homework done. However, my son blossomed. He is a social butterfly. Before, he was just locked into his room with his computer and this and that. Now he was hanging out, he was going and having lunch, he was doing this. He said, Mom, I'm going to go into town to watch movies. What? So he just blossomed in the right school environment. And I can tell you now, and because of my learnings as a coach, that school was educating them in a way of thinking that I'm thinking. So I sent him to this thing called Super Camp when he was 14. And he learned all these things, how to be in a team environment, how to study differently, he learned, and to this day, he goes, the best thing that he ever did was to go to Super Camp, right? And when I gave it to him as a Christmas present, he was like, do I have to go to camp? And he looked at the rules, no computers, no phones. He didn't want to go. He was so angry with us. And we drove 3 hours to drop him off. When we went to pick him up, he didn't want to come home. They had in nature, they climbed trees, they came together, they did teamwork, they did all the stuff that we do, you know,
in personal development, right?
Development 101. And the people who started Super Camp, they studied with Blair and Robert Kiyosaki and Tony Robbins and all these people that we studied with, because they're the same age, but they decided that they're going to use this information and use it on kids.
Nice.
Ta-da.
Nice.
So now in hindsight, when I think about it, when he was in primary school, when I was looking at primary schools, there's a school here called Steiner School, where they put kids together in one room. And as Sylvie was saying, your 5-year-olds, your 7, your 9, and your 10-year-olds, they're all together. And they do art, but they learn English, they learn maths, they learn all the subjects through activities. Experiential and accelerated learning. It's what we do as adults when we go to these programs, like the really good programs, right? That's what they're doing. And I wish I would have done that. However, I can't change it. And what's great is that he's graduated. He barely passed, but I don't care. He passed. I didn't need him to do 100 points. And I told him, Julian, do the best you can. And he sure did. I wasn't a helicopter parent. I just let him be. Sometimes I felt I'm rather ignorant. I don't care. But you know what? Ultimately, he needs to find his way through life. And I can't always be there. You know, I'll be there, but he needs to find his own way. So my way of educating my son is for us to be, interdependent, not codependent. The kid can't even go to the bathroom without asking permission. No. And we have massive, massive fights, but we also know how to close that loop, what we call closing the circle, and we talk. And my son now comes and, you know, when I have a freak out, he coaches me back, everything I taught him. So if people think that children don't have the maturity, when it's something close to their heart, it is.
It has to be relatable to them.
Yeah.
It has to matter to them. You can't force them to do things your way. They are their own people with their own character, their own personalities, they're all their own idiosyncrasies. They're just young. They're not fully mature yet because they're still in a growing phase. But I can't force my will on training. Sure, I can try and say, this is the way you're going to do it because I say so. Not sure that that's going to teach her how to be an adult where she can stand on her own 2 feet and in her own power when she's an adult, because she's got someone else pulling the strings the whole time. My job with her is to constantly give her a set of tools that just with each year releases her from me that little bit more. Yeah. So by the time she enters adult age, she's at comfort. She's not going to sit there and go, oh, wow, now what do I do? Because I've been preparing
my own decisions. Oh my God.
I've been preparing her for the last 12 years to be able to reach this stage.
Yeah.
You know, one of my proudest moments was like when I started personal development. I started for me because I was in a lot of pain internally, so I just wanted to free myself. Then I realized this is good stuff. So I started to teach my young son. I've been doing it for 10 years. So since he was 8, he's been learning bits and pieces, right? And last year I took him and his closest friend into town to look at some exhibitions that they needed for photography. And on the way home, we tripped over this gorgeous coffee shop and had all these beautiful cakes with some French patisserie. So we went in there, and there was just this beautiful context, beautiful moment. We had coffee, cake, and the other boy started to talk about his feelings, right? And I went to take a sip of my coffee and then to start helping him. And as I take my coffee, my son starts asking him questions.
Nice.
The next hour, he coached his friend, and every question that he asked him is what I was going to question. And I sat there going, I taught
Holy
you.
moly. That is nice.
And if anything in life, he learned his people skills, listening skills, not telling, not saying, oh, you have to do this or you must do this, is ask questions. And through all the gaming that he does, even though sometimes I go, oh my God, you just game too much. But he calls me, he goes, guess what? I just made 5 new friends on Steam. So he has constant conversations, but not just about gaming, about life with kids around the world.
Nice.
How is that? So education starts with us as parents. And you said it's a babysitting. Well, you know what? Do you know how many parents over the years I've heard saying, oh, the school doesn't do this and that teacher should do that? Hang on a minute.
Who's the parent?
You're the parent. You're the one that should teach the kids manners, not the teacher.
The only job a school system has is academics. That is their only job. Teach them academics, stuff that you don't have experience in, and then the rest of the job is yours. You're the parent, because you're not going to like how the teacher's going to teach your son or daughter a particular something. Then you get upset with them for teaching them a way that it's not your way. Well, darling, at some point you're going to have to take responsibility and step up as a parent.
Yeah.
One of the teachers last year, Julian, was really struggling with this teacher. And he came home and he started telling me all this stuff. And I go, that's great, honey. I go, but where are you responsible with this? Because I can't see your teacher getting frustrated with you if you did what you needed to do. So parent-teacher day comes and I go and I look at the teacher and I observe him stressed to the max, because he goes, I don't know what else to do with these kids. And they're all teenagers, right? So anyway, next time Julian started complaining, I said, right. And I started to ask him all these questions. And I said, if you were the teacher and you guys did all this stuff, how would you feel? And he goes, pretty frustrated. I said, I think you got to turn that around and start respecting this man. He's got 30 of you in class and tries to deal with all of you and your big mouth. I said, I think you should give him a little bit more respect. Sure enough, he started turning things around. He said, Mom, he's pretty cool. Hello?
No, I would say teachers got a tough job. They've got a tough job. They're put in a system and they're told to do things. And my sister's a teacher. She's a teacher in the New York City school system. And she went into teaching because she loves kids and she loves learning. I think she loves learning. That's maybe more than she loves kids. And she's a great teacher and she's really out of the box. But the school system there, we could have another discussion on that, but the school system there broke her. Her principal broke her. Her creativity as a teacher was stymied. She's older than I am. She's 2 years older than I am. So I'm 52. She's 54. She's just waiting to retire. They have taken away all of her joy of being a teacher in the school system, of her wanting to help children learn in a creative, fun, dynamic way. And they've got it tough. So I can understand the teacher's perspective as well as the child's perspective. I don't blame them. It's just the system is outdated.
If I use this OutSchool as an alternative way of seeing teachers, these people who are, a vast majority of them are actually qualified teachers. They do it because they love the topics. And they spend an hour online with whoever signs up. You could have 2 or 3 kids, or you could have a class of 18. But the joy is there because there's no curriculum hanging off them, that they must teach something a particular way. They teach what they're passionate about. They break it down into bite size. So like the endangered species, it was, this 1 hour was about turtles, this 1 hour was about gorillas, and so on. And he's able to share his love of the topic and share the material that he decides and believes is the best way to teach the kids.
That's nice.
You should see the interaction. These kids love coming back. And they keep coming back. And you look at the feedback for teacher after teacher after teacher. The kids love coming back because they enjoy the process. That curriculum, that system, That's what's breaking the teachers. They can't teach what they want from inside of them. They have to deliver to a formula. The formula doesn't work. You can't put one formula on 40 children. That's assuming they were all the same. We're 3 women and we're completely different.
Right.
What are you going to do with another 37 of us? Right?
Yeah,
Could be a bit of pain.
Well, that's what, yeah, we're almost finished, but just want to tell you what we talked about today. Went to my chiropractor, and he was sort of telling us, like, both of us are quite sporty, so we do a lot of sport, but neither of us actually did any type of chiropractic healing, massage healing, physiotherapy. When you're highly active and your body really breaks down, and you get to a point where you're in pain. So now I find it hard to walk. Sylvie's got injuries. And then we were talking about how important it would be to bring education to children in schools, or have a school where kids are going to learn about how to take care of their bodies, what they should be eating based on their stuff. How, like with Sylvie teaching Trinity about maths in action, how amazing would it be to have a school where kids learned all that stuff, you know, and learn about colors and about letters and about names through Thomas the Tank Engine.
Yeah.
When my son told me that Thomas went on a viaduct and fell into the ravine, I went, what's a viaduct and what's a ravine? You know, and then I take him to kindergarten and they said, you know, you need to give him something else to play with because all he talks about is Thomas. And I went,
that's what he likes.
He recognized names on the street, he recognized colors, he had words that I didn't have.
Because the education is designed especially through those books.
Yeah.
Designed so you're learning from them. Each book is a different story. One will be about colors, one will be about numbers.
Yeah.
It just happens to be one topic.
You can learn from everything. You know, my daughter, I got to tell one story, and I really have to go because I have a client. But my daughter's 3 years old, right? 3 years old, and I brought her to New York. She's hanging out with my mom. My mom's taking care of her, and they go to a cafe. My mother loves cafes. So they go to a cafe. My mother's going to have coffee. She's going to give my little 3-year-old some eggs or whatever, and they sit down at the table, and there's music in the restaurant, in the cafe. And my daughter says, "Oh, that's Mozart." My mother. Oh my God, she knows it's Mozart. Oh my She's freaking out. Oh my God, this 3-year-old kid, she knows that it's Mozart. But you know, there's tools to teach children about music. My kids knew Mozart. My kids knew the Beatles as well. You know, you expose them to different things, and you speak to them about whatever you expose them to, and that's how they learn. And it's so much nicer for them. A 3-year-old knows to recognize in a strange place that is Mozart, because that's what we expose them to. We have a lot of power as parents. And like you said, Sylvie, and I agree with you, you know, in my later years, we need to step up as parents and decide how we want to parent our children, and how, you know, I think we need to put them first. And what does that mean to put them first? You know? Mm-hmm. So today I feel a little different.
I'm gonna ask Sylvie to when you post you post the video, to put out the link to that OutSchool thing if any parents are interested.
Yeah, or any teachers. I was thinking about that. Maybe my sister would get in touch with them and see if she can bring back her love for teaching.
Yeah, she's happy to retire. Oh, I mean, lots of them are still teaching in public school, and they just teach where they can, and some others have left public school. Actually, one of Trini's favorite teachers was an ex-FBI agent. Wow. Who was mad about ancient Egypt, which my girl is mad about ancient Egypt. Well, for 5 weeks, you should have seen her. This woman oozed so much enthusiasm because I'm nearby, I hear it all. She loved the topic. So as she's nearing the end of the 5 weeks, she's letting the kids know that she's done an ancient Egypt course specifically around women. And Trini from the sideline, sign me up. Sign me up. Sign me up. You know, it's really early in the morning. I don't care. Absolutely loved it. That's what I want to hear.
That's nice.
I want to hear that you're interested. and I just say, this is what's available. We could get something out of this, out of that, out of that, out of that. What's of interest. But for your sister, our school would probably be a really nice sister because she's in the US. She would have quite a big membership, and much easier than us, because for us, we're on a different time zone. It's really difficult sometimes to get into some classes because it's 3 a.m. I'm not getting up for it. But I could talk to you separately about that at another time.
Thank you so much, Sylvie, for being with us and speaking so freely and sharing and letting, especially me, letting me vent, to someone who's listening to me and understands the other side of the spectrum. So I appreciate that. It was really a great call. And we are talking a long time. How long are we online? About an hour and a half, I think.
An hour and a half, yeah.
Oh my God.
But this is such a huge subject.
It's a touchy subject.
But I hope that whoever sits through it, fully,
hopefully they'll get something out of it.
That they get lots out of it and they can relate to it.
And they're welcome to ask questions. If anybody has questions, you're welcome to refer them to me. I'm more than happy to chat with them.
Thank you. I'm going to tag you on it, so I hope that you get also, if anyone asks us any questions, comments, we love them. We love questions and comments because that's how we grow and that's how we learn. That's how we are able to implement in our lives. So I think we will see everyone after Christmas. So I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. We'll see you before the new year. And again, Sylvie, thank you so much for sharing. It's a great topic.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Bye. Happy holidays.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.